This is I'm Tobbe from the band Nestor, and it's great to be with you this Tuesday morning.
Beautiful, mate. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, thank you.
No worries. So Nestor re-released last year's debut album, Kids in a Ghost Town, as a special deluxe edition late last month, mate. So how's the early response been for it?
Well, yeah, it's been great. You know, it's for us. We lived with this album for quite some time now, as we released it on our own, like last year. But it's great to be able to do it on a full scale, so to speak, with a distribution partner that really can get the album out there. So it feels great, and it's also nice to be able to give the fans some additional extras in terms of 3 new songs. So all good.
So did you find most of the feedback's coming from existing fans who may already have the original version, or from fans that are new to the band because of the release?
I think so far, you know, since we released it, we noticed that we got quite a lot of new fans, as you know, as we were able to reach different geographical areas with the new release. So, but you know, last year when we released it in mainly Scandinavia, we got a lot of feedback on you know, reviews and everything from these parts of the world. But now for the last weeks, it's you can really tell that for example, there's a lot of people from South Africa, for example, South America, sorry, that reviewed the album and given us great feedback. So yeah.
Cool. And the new version features 3 new tracks, as you say, mate. So run us through them individually and why you chose them for the re-release.
Well, I think the main part was that when we decided to do a re-release with the Napalm Records, we wanted as well some new tracks. So I wrote 2 new tracks, and then at the moment when we decided to go with Napalm, we were out on tour. So we realized that it would probably take quite a lot of time to, you know, writing 3 songs, recording 3 songs on tour. It's not super easy. So 2 of the songs were composed during tour basically, and we recorded them when we had some days off. And then the 3rd song is a cover of the Whitney Houston track, Dance with Somebody, which was in a way, I think, for us, a way of showing the fans that, you know, we're an 80s band in that sense. And it's a great track, and we wanted to do it, covered that song in our own way, so to speak. And that sometimes it could give a bit of diversity to a band to do someone else's song. So it was mainly fun to do a cover on this album, the re-release.
Yeah. So tell us about the title, Kids in a Ghost Town. Where did it come from? I like it.
Well, it's the song is all about us growing up. We started this band already in 1989 when we were just kids, you know, 14 years old, and we're all from a small town in Sweden that in a way is a ghost town. So it's kind of an album about growing up and becoming an adult, you know, the last couple of weeks during the summer break when you're still a teenager without any responsibilities. And the album is about that, basically. The last kind of night, you know, getting the band in a car and just drive through the night, going somewhere, believing that you could be a rock star or, you know, take on the world or whatever, and then realizing that tomorrow it's going to be a different world, in that sense that there's going to be, you know, responsibilities, and, you know, so the album is about that, growing up in a small town, basically, in a ghost town.
Okay, cool. So the press release says of the album that it sends fans on a journey back in time to the 80s, but both in sound and in spirit. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's, I think it's a very good description of the album. It's as I said, we wanted to kind of, you know, get into a time machine and travel back to 1989 and make that album that we didn't have the skills or possibilities to make then. We wanted to do that now, so to speak. So yeah, we you know, the inspiration is all these bands from the 80s, and with everything from the videos to the, you know, the logos, everything is like 80s kind of influenced. So that, I guess that is the reason why the description is like that.
Mm-hmm. And part of the reason, of course, that it took so long to get your debut album out was the band broke up for a little while, but you reformed last year in 2021. So what actually changed to make you decide to try again, I guess?
the thing is that when the pandemic hit the world, I always been in the music industry and writing songs as a producer, songwriter. And when the pandemic hit the world and we were in confinement, then I was sitting by my piano playing songs. And for some reason, I ended up playing like all these songs from the 80s. And when I did that, I guess, you know, the reason why, I don't know, but I guess it's because the world was in a shaky place and I kind of wanted to go back to something that felt safe. And, you know, when the world was at your feet, so to speak, when you're 14 years old, something like that. So then I thought about making an album that's, you know, an 80s album. I was like, that would be great, because of course the pop scene and all that has been done quite a bit, but the hard rock kind of AOR scene from the 80s, it hasn't really been revived in that sense. So I thought about it, and then I spoke to my the guitarist that you know, that I grew up with, that was a part of Nestor in the beginning as well, and said to him that wouldn't it be great to make an 80s album? And he was like, but what about, shall we talk to the guys, you know, Nestor, to our friends, and see, wouldn't it be nice to do this with the guys that we actually grew up with? We didn't just grow up with them, we grew up with this kind of music as well. So we called them up basically and said like, hey, what do you think about getting in a time machine and go back to 1989 and make an album that we wanted to make then, but we didn't have the skills or possibilities, and make it now and just see, you know, where it takes us. And they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then, you know, we never really expected it to be this big. It was more like a fun project, and, you know, to get together and have a laugh and drink some beer. But then, you know, when the first 3 songs was recorded, we kind of felt that, wow, this is really good. So yeah.
Cool. And then look, you mentioned that you're sticking to that old 80s style music. So 80s music is something that it never seems to die. Like it always stays popular. Like, what is it you think about that music that keeps it going?
I think the main thing I think is that in the 80s, you know, there was so many harmonies and melodies, and everything was a bit the more the merrier kind of, you know, the what do you say, like the ambition was always to make, if you wanted to make an emotional song in the 80s, you really did an emotional song. Nowadays I think it's a little bit like you know, the expression the more the merrier. I think that is the thing about the 80s. Everything from movies to music to anything, it was like everything, you know, it was more the more the merrier. You know, when a rock band is rock, they are rock to 100%. They don't care if they come across like pretentious, they do it, you know. And I think that might have to do with it. And also the main thing I think is the melodies and harmonies in the 80s. They were the song was always in focus, so to speak.
Yeah. So looking forward, when you start to do more new music, are you gonna keep it back in that 80s style, or are you gonna sort of modernize it a little bit?
Well, I think, you know, we're gonna keep, for the next album, we're definitely gonna stay in the 80s, even though we're gonna experiment a little bit. But you know, this is where we come from, and we believe that there is no really great music in this genre anymore. There might be, but as far as I know, it's not that many bands that really can do it. So we're gonna definitely stay in the 80s, even though we might add influences from beginning of the 90s or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna stay in the 80s.
Beautiful, man. All right, Tobias. Well, thanks very much for your time. The deluxe version of Kids in a Ghost Town is out.
Thank you very much.
No worries at all, brother. You take care, mate.